Heidi ho, neighborinos. Let's do a quick video on setting up a web host. Now, in my JavaScript and PHP classes, I require both of them to set up their own website so they can publish their work on the internet as an active web page. That means you need a web host. Now, it's not hard to find a web host. There's plenty of them, and there are plenty of free ones out there, and that's what we're going to look at today. Let's set up a free web host for either the JavaScript or the PHP class. Now, as with most everything on the internet, what we're going to do is start with a Google search. If I'm looking for JavaScript, I might Google free JavaScript hosting or free JavaScript web hosting. Scroll past the ads. We don't need to look at the ads. They're trying to sell you something. Usually if they spend a lot of money on an ad, it's not really free, although some of them are. But let's go down to the regular ones, and you can see there are plenty of websites that will host JavaScript. If you're in the JavaScript class, any website will do. If you already have a website, just put a JavaScript subfolder into it or a project folder into it, and it'll be your web address / JavaScript. That'll be your website. If you don't have a current website, go ahead to any website or any web host, and you can host your JavaScript page from there. However, I want you to look a little bit ahead. If you're learning JavaScript, it means you're interested in building web pages. If you're interested in building web pages, you might want to learn PHP in the future. Maybe take my PHP class next semester. Or you might want to learn something called MySQL, which is a database program. So, in order to kill two birds with one stone, even if you're just in the JavaScript, you're not even in the PHP class, let's go ahead and Google free PHP web hosting. And if we pick one of these websites, it'll work for the JavaScript class, it'll work for the PHP class, it'll work for MySQL when you're ready to learn databases, it'll work for anything. So those are the web hosts I like to use, the ones that support PHP. Once again, I skip past the ads. If they're trying to sell you something, it's not going to be free. And I get to the free listings here, or the ones that aren't ads. The next one here, and it's another good choice, is called AwardSpace. We started using it about a semester ago, and most of the people are happy with it. We're going to go ahead and look at this awardspace.com. What are you going to do? It's free. They're easy to set up. If the first one you try doesn't work, just pick one of these others from the list. I'm noticing a new one here called freehostia.com. Looks like it has everything you want, PHP, MySQL, and of course, it will support JavaScript. All of the hosts support JavaScript. So that is also a possibility. One thing I don't want you to do is think that you have to use one of the web hosts that I'm recommending or showing you here. You can use any web host you want for the JavaScript class. You could use any web host that supports PHP and MySQL for the PHP class. Go ahead and pick the one you want. Don't go by what I say. Pick the host that you like. Again, the only warning I'd have is infinityfree.net has been having a few glitches lately. People are uploading their web pages, and it's taking a long time for those uploads or updates to take effect. They will try to sell you stuff. They'll try and sell you domain names. We don't need a domain name for this class. They'll try to sell you a paid website. And I want to encourage you, when you're building a website for a company, when you're building a real website for somebody that's trying to promote a product or sell a product, you want to pay for hosting. You don't want to use a free host for that. But this is a test web page for a student account. We don't need to buy the upgrades. So resist or don't accept the upgrades. You don't have to pay anything to get a free web host. See, there's a nice cheap one right there. They will try and sell you a host. But the one I really want to play with today, right, is awardspace.com. It's a new one. I haven't used it, but last semester several students used it and they said they liked it and they didn't have any problems. So let's go ahead and do the full setup on awardspace.com. You can see it has the words we like: free sign up, free setup, free web page. Right? That's what we want to do. I never use my Facebook or Google. I don't want to tie it to another website. So I'm just going to go ahead and set it up. I might skip through some of this. All right, so I give them my name, my email address, and an 8-character password, and it says we're happy. Let's go ahead and set up a free hosting account on awardspace.com. Now, since I haven't used it, it'll allow me to use any email address I want. Woohoo! So I've registered as a user. Again, what are they doing? They're asking me to upgrade. You do not need to upgrade to a premium hosting plan. We can go ahead and use the free hosting plan for this class. Again, if you go on after this class and say, I want to build a real commercial website for my dad's business or for a friend of mine that's starting a business, use the premium hosting. Pay for hosting if it is a real website. But for our practice website, for our class website, we do not need the upgraded plan. All right, so what I have to do is activate my account, which means I need to go to my email and do it. So I'm going to hit pause on the video here while I go to my email account and activate. So give me a second. All right, so somehow I believe the school email program is blocking my activation email. All of these free web hosts, once you sign up, send you an email and you have to click on it to activate it. And this is actually kind of common. It kind of just blocked that email, or the school did. So I'm going to try my Yahoo account and see if that works. Cross my fingers and resend my activation email. Again, that is very, very common. I don't know what to tell you about that. Different servers block different emails. I know when I try and send email from college1.com, things like Gmail block it all the time. So that's pretty normal. Let's see if my Yahoo mail came through. So I'm checking it on my phone right now, and woohoo, I got my email. It has a link to activate the account. Again, almost all of these websites send you a confirmation email. And it says click on the link to activate your account. And voila. So my school email blocked the confirmation email, but my Yahoo email let it through. It looks like it logged me onto my phone. I didn't want to log onto my phone. I wanted to log on here. So what I can do now that I am activated is I can go ahead and, I don't know, where do I go? Just go to log on screen. There we go. And now I got to make sure I use the right email account. I think I'll probably block my email address. You don't need to know my Yahoo account. Use the same password as I gave it before. And now that I'm activated, I should be able to log on to awardspace.com. Woohoo! It was as easy as that, people. You give them your name, you give them your email, and as long as your service provider doesn't block the email, you're through and you have yourself a web host set up. Now, here we go. There's my name, blah, blah, blah. If you spot any bugs, do this, blah, blah, blah. I'm looking at my account. Now I need to do some setup on my account. So I'm going to look at this screen and figure out how to set it up. It says I can go to Control Panel. Control Panel is almost universal. You go to the Control Panel to set up your website. I'm going to look at this screen a little bit before I move on. Oh, there, it's all right there. I'm scrolling down to these icons. I got my website manager. I got this, I got that. Whoa, what am I looking for? I'm looking at the information for my website. I'm looking on how I unload data or upload web pages to it. I'm also looking for my web address. I don't see my web address yet. That's important. First thing we need to do is figure out what our web address is, right? www.college1.com, www.canyons.edu. Everybody on the internet has a URL or a web address, and we need to figure out what our URL or web address is. I'm looking at these buttons here, and I know we're going to use the file manager, and as I'm looking at it, if we were doing PHP, I sure would go look at the PHP settings. So what we need to do is set up our web address. And this is the only tricky thing I've found about awardspace.com. The other web hosts I've used, the free web hosts, are a little more straightforward. They come right out and ask you, what do you want your web address to be? What do you want your domain address to be? And this one, I had to look a few times. I cut out, a good 10 minutes of me looking around here. What I think I want to do here is go down to register domains and figure out my domain name. Now, this is a free web host, so you ask yourself, how do they make money? Well, one of the ways they make money is they try to sell you a domain. So if you want to register your own web address, www.mywebsite.com, you do that on here, you pay them money, you get your own web address. But on a free site, we don't need our own web address. We can do what's called create a free subdomain. And notice how it's the fourth one down there, and it isn't very obvious that that's where you go to get a free web address, but that's where you do it. We create a subdomain. So we're going to go ahead and create a subdomain. I'll go ahead and use an easy one, Ferguson COC. You can't use something real common because someone will already taken it. Now it says at webpages.com. It looks like there's several different ones we can do. Science, All right, let's do it at webpages.com. So my web address, according to this, is going to be fergusoncoc.atwebpages.com. And again, notice I'm taking the free option here. So when I create my subdomain, and you have to do this, you have to create a subdomain. There it is. Woohoo! I have a web address. fergusoncoc.webpages.com. That is the address you're going to upload to me at College One. I might have you upload it on Canvas too. We have set up a domain name or a web address or a URL it's called. Right now I could probably hit open website and it'll open up my web page and I'll see the default one. It says, hey, you haven't set up your web page, so go to the control panel or use this Zachy website builder. We're not going to use that. And then we're going to have our web page. So now we need to upload files to awardspace.com and write that down, fergusoncoc.atwebpages.com. You're going to set up your own domain. You'll have your own address. Write that down here. I'm going to go into notes. Now, if it was me, this is what I would be uploading to Canvas or College One. Make sure you write down your own website address that you set up. Again, make sure you also set up a free subdomain. You do not have to pay for your own web address. We're basically using their web address with our name. So go ahead and set that up. And according to this, it's telling you, hey, let's go to the control panel or the file manager and upload some files. So I go back to the AwardSpace page. I have my web address now. It is time to go ahead and go back a screen. Go back another screen. I am back at what I would call the control panel here. This has got all the buttons and icons and links to the different ways to set up your web page. Reminder, we set up our domain name. We took the free subdomain and now we have a web address. So now we have to upload our files. Now, the thing that's usually easiest and all free web hosts have are this thing called a file manager. Right? A file manager lets you create and upload files directly on the website. You can see I have a folder there. Ooh, I like that folder name. It is my web address. So it's a good reminder. Maybe I didn't need to write it down after all. It's listed right there. I'm going to click on that and see what's in here. Ooh, what is in here? All right. Is this where I put my files? Maybe. I'm thinking this is my home page. I'm thinking this is the folder where I want to add or create files. Now you can see up here at the top, all right, there's an upload button. If I have a file ready on my computer, I can just upload it to this folder and it should become my active web page. There's a create button if I want to create my own files here, and then I can copy and paste my stuff in. I think I'll use that one. And then I can rename or move files, delete files, yada, yada, yada. I can download files from this server back to my computer. I'm going to go ahead and hit create. Create a directory. Let's go ahead and create a file. Now, here is where the JavaScript and the PHP classes differ from one another. In PHP, you'll want to create a .php file. In JavaScript, you're going to create two files. You're going to create a .html file, and you're going to create a .js or JavaScript file. So the first one I think I'll do is, I don't know. Let's do the PHP because it's only one file. So again, hang on with me. If you're in the JavaScript class, I'm just going to do a quick PHP example, and then I'll switch back over to JavaScript. I don't care which class you're in, JavaScript or PHP. Watch both of these file setups because it's important for you to understand how to create files. So I'm going to go to index.php. According to college1.com, that is what I want you to name your file for the PHP class. So I'll go ahead and create this file. And now I have an index.php file in here, and it's an empty file. You can see that it has a size of 0 bytes. What I need to do is I need to edit that thing. So if I double click on it, all right, ooh, look at that. It opens up a text window where I can copy and paste some text into it. Now, it just so happens that I have college1.com open over here, and it just so happens I have my PHP class open over here, and I'm going to go to the very first lecture in my PHP class and find myself a piece of PHP code. Now, this first example is really, really simple. I don't want to use it, so I'm going to scroll down to a more complex or a better example of a PHP program. And there it is, a PHP program. Again, if you're in the JavaScript class, stick with me. This is very similar to how we do it in JavaScript. I want you to go ahead and watch what I do here. All I'm going to do is grab some code off this web page, copy it, come back over to my award space, and paste it. And that's kind of it. Copy and paste. And of course, I want to hit save. Now I have a PHP file on my server. I said, create me a PHP file. I copied and pasted some code into it, and I saved it. Now, if all goes well, it should now just work when I go to my website. Now, what am I going to do? Remember that note I left myself? That note with a web page address on it? I'm going to grab that web page address, copy it, come over here to one of my tabs on my web browser and paste it and see what happens. Oops, I did that wrong. That is not where I wanted to copy and paste it. I wanted to come way up to the top of the screen. Let me move the screen down here. And right there in the address bar, I wanted to paste it. So let's go to the address bar and paste my web address. And fergusoncoc@webpages.com. And it didn't work. Boo-hoo. All right, I got a little confused. Remember, I just uploaded my index.php file, and I came to my fergusoncoc@webpages.com address, and I still have the same old default screen that I was seeing before. And I got a little confused. I paused the video. I went back and kind of looked. Turns out I did everything right. What I forgot to do was right-click and say reload this page. And when I reload my page, then it loaded the new one. Quite often that happens, right? You upload a new file to your web host and you go and look at it and it's the same old page. You got to remember to reload. If I'm using Firefox on Windows, I do a shift reload to make sure that it reads the new file off there. But look, I got my hello world. I'm running PHP. It turns out I was able to get my PHP program to load and view on this web page. So let's go back to my award space screen. There's my index.php file. If I double click on it, there's my file. If I'm saying hello world, I'm running PHP. Let's go ahead and put my name, Chris, on it. Make an edit to my PHP thing. I hit save. And again, I'll show you the same thing I was dealing with before. Okay, I saved it, I put it on there, I go back to my website, and of course you don't see the change until you hit reload. And then you see the change after you hit reload. So don't forget the reload when you go to look at your web page. Web browsers do something called caching. They download your page and they keep it in memory, and they just keep showing you the same thing until you force it to reload the page. And that's it. For those of you with the PHP class, that's it. You got to set up one file, index.php. Now, let's switch over to JavaScript. And just like I told the JavaScript people, even if you're taking PHP, go ahead and keep watching because we are going to basically do the same thing. Set up some files and view the web page. So I'm going to go back to my awardspace.com tab, and I'm going to go back on this screen. And because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to rename this file. Not because any spectacular reason, but index old. I don't want to be that file. I want to switch over to HTML and JavaScript now. So I'm just kind of renaming so I can keep it there in my server folder. I can run it when I want if I give it the name indexold.php. But now I'm going to show the JavaScript people how they set up their files. Now there are two files in the JavaScript class that I asked you to set up for JavaScript. And let's go ahead and set them up right now. I'm going to hit create again. I'm going to say create a file. And this time, instead of creating a PHP file, I'm going to create an HTML file. This is actually more common. Right? Your initial web page is in a file called index.html, and I'm going to go ahead and say create an index.html file. And now, instead of loading index.php, I'm going to want it to load index.html. All right, so apparently I didn't rename that PHP file right. I had to hit the check mark after I renamed it. All right, so now I've successfully renamed the PHP file, and I'm going to switch over to HTML and JavaScript. There's a blank index.html file. If I double click on it, I am in the HTML editor now. Now, it just so happens I still have my college1.com up, and I'm going to switch from my PHP class over to my JavaScript class. Now for this one, the starting HTML I want you to use is through the lab link. I want you to go to lab number 1, JavaScript lab number 1, and down at the bottom, I gave you some starter code. It's right there in a box, and I can right click on that and I can copy and paste this whole thing. Copy it and go back to my award space, and I'm going to paste it. I'm going to put just a little filler word, hello world, right there. And this is just so we can see something on the screen when we load that. To make sure we can see something. Hello world is what's going to show up in the middle of our web page. How about this is HTML. Save that. Always make sure you save your changes. Now what am I going to do? This is the JavaScript class after all. And in the JavaScript class, right there in the instructions, there are a need to create a second file. So I'll hit create again. And this time I will create a file called student.js. That is going to be a requirement of the JavaScript class that you could build 2 files. PHP is kind of lucky. You only have to build 1 file at the beginning. In JavaScript, you have to build an HTML file and a JavaScript file, and they have to be called index.html and student.js. Now, I'm not going to do your project for you. I'm not going to do exactly what you need in student.js, but since it's easy, I will go out and grab some JavaScript. Now, it's not on this screen, but on the lecture screen, I do believe I said in the instructions for the lab, I said go grab one of these functions. And all you got to do is grab a single function. I'm going to copy it, all right, or I can copy it that way. I'm going to go to award space over here, And technically, I'm not even going to be using this thing, but I got a little function in there. This is our JavaScript program. See how similar PHP and JavaScript are? You just have to set up some files, save them to the server, and you're off to the races. The only reason we're doing 2 files in JavaScript is I want to kind of separate and isolate the JavaScript in its own file. If I wanted to, I could have put everything in 1 file for JavaScript, but it is a requirement that you set up 2 files for the JavaScript class. So I will do that. I will hit save again. Now, if you recall, we still have the PHP file active on this web page. I'm at fergusoncoc.atwebpages.com, and we still have PHP. What do I have to do to get to see the changes? I have to hit reload page. And voila, look at that. I've got some new text on my web page. Hello world, this is HTML. Guess what I'm looking at now? Since I renamed the PHP file so it's no longer being displayed, it'll default and show the index.html file. My index.html file will load my student.js. Again, I'm not going to do your work here. You still got to do lab 1 yourself. There's some editing that's going to happen here. Right? I need to go back here to award space and finish my lab. There's plenty of instructions here on the lab. Let's go back to the lab. All right, look at that. There's a whole bunch of instructions. I've done most of this, but you still have to set up a couple of links that call the JavaScript function. I'll let you do that. What I'm doing here is I'm showing you how to set up the initial web page. It's up to you to edit it. All right, remember, it takes 2 files. So there you have it. I'm pretty glad that worked pretty good. It was pretty easy once I figured out the domain name. The only little trick I had there was for the domain name. Make sure you click on domain and use the free subdomain. Do not buy anything for this class. When you're done with this class and you want to start building web pages for people for real, then you go ahead and you buy domain names. But for this class, use all the free options on the website. All right, that was pretty easy. It wasn't too bad. I hope that's okay. Now, I do want to show you one thing, and this is for the JavaScript people. It might apply to the PHP people. I haven't done the PHP update, but this last summer, I redid all my labs in JavaScript, and we're going to do something new here. I'm going to go up here to my website, and in the URL, I'm going to copy and paste that URL. So I'm going to copy that URL. This is just the fergusoncoc@webpages.com. Now, in the JavaScript class, when you're doing the lab, what I want you to do is go ahead and give me that URL. Let me move this up a little bit. See down here under this box with the starter code, it says, I want your URL. So I'm going to, I don't want to paste it over there. I want to paste it over this whole thing. I'm going to paste that URL in there. All right, and this is a new feature. We're testing it the first semester. I'm really excited about it. But if you give me your web address and you hit submit, cross your fingers and hope it works. This is a non-secure form. Now, most of the free sites do not use secure protocol. So you're going to get this warning every time. It's normal. All my web pages are under the secure protocol. We're switching over to the non-secure. This is a normal message. Do you really want to see a non-secured web page? And the answer is yes. Send it off. And let's cross our fingers. Woohoo! Well, something kind of worked there. It basically is automatically grading the lab. Now, I haven't done the PHP this way yet, but I plan to do that to the PHP the next time I offer it. You give me the web address, I'll go ahead and look at the HTML and the JavaScript or PHP, and I'll tell you what works. Now, it looks to me like I renamed, I didn't name the method or the function well in JavaScript, and it's saying I want to see some of these tags here. Don't worry, all of those instructions are on the lab webpage. Now, if I follow the instructions, I'll get a good score here. I'm looking for 6 out of 6 and 100% on these. So that's looking pretty good. That was my first real live test on that. I'm happy with it. Woo! Okay, so hopefully That will get you started with your own web hosting site. It doesn't matter whether you're taking the PHP class or the JavaScript class. The only difference is the name of the files you set up. If you are, let's go back. In the PHP class, you're going to set up a file called index.php and don't do the HTML and the JS file. However, if you're in the JavaScript class, you don't need the PHP file. You need the index.html and student.js. All right. I think that's enough. That should get you started. Award space is an option. Use 00 web hosting as a second option. Go ahead and set up sites on both of them. Try them both. See how you like them. InfinityFree.net. We're crossing our fingers and hoping it starts to work better. But right now it's been kind of shaky lately. Let's start with those two. And again, you can always use your own host. Some people that take my classes already have web servers. The only thing I ask when you use your own host is what? Number one, you'll probably have to put it in an unsecured part of the website. And number two, I want you to create a /JavaScript or /PHP folder or directory on there and put all the class stuff in that subdirectory. Don't put it on the main web page. All right. Have a good day. Good luck with your hosting. We're off to the races. Finish the class and do well, please. Just a quick addition before I wrap up this video. What do you do when it comes time to update your web page? Of course, you go back to awardspace.com and log on to it. And we get back to the main panel or the control panel. Here's where I have to have a warning for you. It is much better to work on your website on your own computer. When you're done, upload it to AwardSpace. It is very tempting to do all the editing here on AwardSpace. It's not a good idea. If I go back to the file manager, there's my files. Go into my directory for my web page. There's my files. Again, it's very tempting to click on index.html or whatever file you're working on and do all your editing here. Let's put in a tag and hit save and say, okay, I'm done editing. That's a bad idea. You really want to edit this file on your computer. You need 2 copies of the web page. You need a copy on your server and you need a copy on your home computer. If you don't have a copy on your computer and the server and something happens to either one of the computers, you're screwed. You gotta have 2 copies. So what I like to do is I like to do all the editing on my computer. I like an editor called Notepad++. It has nice color highlighting on it. I test it. I do all the work on my computer. There's instructions in the lab and in the lecture telling you how to do that. You need to do all the editing on your computer. And then once you have it all working, then you just copy and paste it over to AwardSpace. And it's real simple. If I go over here to Safari, under the File menu, you notice under the File menu, there's an Open File option. You can also see Command O will do the same thing. Command O says, open a file on my computer, read it, boom, and display it on the screen. So you can edit all your code on your own computer, get it working, get it tested, and then upload it to AwardSpace when it's ready. Try not to keep the only copy on the free host. What is our number one problem with free hosts? They're unreliable. They crash. They get disconnected. They get hacked. If something should happen to your code on the server, you need a copy on your computer. That's my number one advice to any web developers. Make sure you keep a copy on your computer. Try and do all the editing on your computer and just upload it when it's done and ready to go to the server. That's it. Hopefully now I'm done with this video. Have a good day.